Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire in the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined with a very special guest. He's the empty nest coach, Jay Ramsden. Hey, Jay, how you doing today?
I am doing great, Ryan. So good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it is my pleasure. I looked into your background a little bit, and I was kind of blown away by your bio and everything, because I know a lot of my friends and everything going through with what you went through.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is I'm just a regular Joe, right? I'm not special, right? I'm just a guy who had experiences in life like everybody else has had experiences in life. And you kind of figure out how do I move forward through all these different things that happen?
Yeah, awesome. So the number one question the audience probably has is, who is Jay Ramsden?
So Jay Ramsden, my name is Jason Ramsden. My good friends call me Jay. So when I had a career change after 30 years in education, I decided I was going to reinvent myself. So I just started calling myself Jay online, and my wife received a promotion in work right after the pandemic, and we moved. And I decided not to continue doing what I was doing for my career for 30 years in education, and I decided to help people through life coaching, specifically empty nesters. And I wanted to be able to help people kind of see what's on the other side of it if you really want to challenge yourself in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And so I became certified as a life coach, and specifically helping empty nesters figure out what now and what's next. So that's kind of my initial journey here in life in this second chapter.
Nice story. How did your background in education prepare you for what you're doing now?
That's a great question, Ryan. My background in education, I worked in education, but I was a chief information officer. I was in IT. So I think what it prepared me for, when I look back, is kind of my whole career. I worked in education for a long time, and the first job I had in education was helping people figure out what schools they wanted to go to. And then I got into IT and now coaching. And what I realized throughout that entire journey is I've always helped people figure out how to solve a problem and figure out a better way to move forward. So when I was helping people figure out schools, that was, hey, I'm helping you figure out what comes next for you. When in IT, helping people solve problems and find a better way to move forward. And then same thing in coaching. So it's been an interesting journey that I've been on in terms of that time frame. But when you look at your entire life and you say to yourself, "Oh, I can see these nuggets of who I am and kind of the special traits and special skills that I have," for me, it was just kind of like this aha moment. It's oh, I can help more people than I've been helping when I was working in education. That was just kind of a small window of people, students and faculty and staff, right? But then when I became a life coach, it was oh, I can actually help a lot more people, even if I don't even work with them. Even if they see my social, if they see me on TikTok or they see me on Instagram, they read my blog or listen to my podcast, I can help them without even interacting with them directly.
So what inspired you to become an empty nest coach of all things?
Yeah, so I think what it was I was a general life coach, Ryan, and I was just talking about lots of different things. But what I found is the people who were being attracted to my feed, my social feed, or working with me one-on-one were all in this same stage of life that I was in. And then when I started talking about empty nesting specifically in social, then there was kind of this whole aha moment of people coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm experiencing the same thing, and here's what I'm struggling with, and I'm seeing the same thing in your journey as in my journey." And then people, all kind of get connected. And it's kind of how I built my community on TikTok, was through actually talking about the empty nest piece. It wasn't so much, "Oh, hey, let me talk about empty nesting." It revealed itself to me instead of me picking it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome how you were just you probably posted one thing about it. It just kind of led you there, huh?
It did. Yeah. It's funny how life does that. And to be honest, right, I'm known as the empty nest coach on TikTok and Instagram. And the reason I ended up that way is because I was talking about empty nesting stuff. And then TikTok's like, well, if you take your handle and your name and your bio and all talk about the same thing, that helps in the algorithm. So that's how I ended up being the empty nest coach on TikTok, was some TikTok algorithm advice. But it did work, and it pulls in people all the time because of what I talk about.
Nice. So, how do you promote yourself then on TikTok and Instagram then?
It's mostly through videos, and it's either talking about experiences or things I've seen with clients or within my community of empty nesters out there. Is like what you struggle with, what happens at certain times of the year, the kind of journey that empty nesters typically go through, which is kind of like grief, relief, and joy. And people talk about, oh, I don't know where I am in that journey, or I've been in this one stage too long. And I try to remind people it's not linear. You don't go grief, relief, and then joy. Some people stick in the grief for a long time, and then they get to relief, and then the kids come home from school for vacation, and they go back into grief when they go back to school. Some people jump right to joy. Maybe they didn't have a great relationship with their kids. So those are all the different components of it. And that's kind of, I started talking about that a lot. And then I really got into starting about like, this is your time, right? This is your time to shine. Like, your job isn't over as a parent, but it is as a 24/7 parent.
Hmm.
And so I say it's like we go from a full-time job to like a contracting job. We become 1099 employees of our kids when they have questions. And that seems to resonate with people in terms of like where they are with their journey.
That's an interesting take on that. It's like, hey, you're not the regular 9 to 5 job now, 24 hours. It's just like you're 1099.
Yeah.
So, what other kind of services do you provide?
Oh, so I mean, I do coaching one-on-one. I have some master classes that I offer to folks. I've got my podcast and my blog, but mostly it's coaching, working with people one-on-one to kind of help them figure out what they want to do. It's all about answering the questions like kind of like what now and what next. And while I do talk about empty nesting, and that's my handle on all socials, it is really focused about life transitions, right? So life transitions happen to us all the time. And we see them happen, right? When we're kids, we know we have to, like, we see, oh, well, it's time to go to elementary school. And then we go, okay, after elementary school is middle school. And after middle school is high school. And after high school is either, work or college or going into the military. And then we see people, oh, we're supposed to like get a job and then get married and then have kids. Like, it's all kind of laid out for us. And then so is retirement. But what's not laid out for us, you can't really find it online. Is why I love talking about it, is the time from when the kids leave until you retire. That's the emptiness years. That's a life transition, right? That raises lots and lots of questions. And so there are questions that raise when people get divorced, or when they get fired from a job or change jobs, or someone passes away. Those are all life transitions that raise questions, the exact same ones that I answer, is like, what now and what next? So it's something that everybody goes through, like those life transitions. Not everybody happens to have kids and become empty nesters, but everybody goes through some type of life transition in life that they have to answer those two questions: what's now and what next? And that's what I love about the work that I do.
That's awesome. Like, I completely agree about them transitions that everybody goes through. Some people just don't know how to handle the transitions that life seems to throw at you.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and we're talking about it a little bit. Is like, inherently we know the answer of what now and what next. Like, it's down here. Like, down here, I'm pointing, like, for those listening on audio, like to my heart. Like, we know what the answer is here, but our head, like our brain, doesn't always let go of what that is. So I say you have to get right with what's in your head and your heart in order to move forward. If you let one or the other go, then you're missing a component of how you move forward. So oftentimes it's here, it's in our heart. We know what we need to do, but our brain is afraid to take the next step. And that's the power of coaching, is helping people pull out what's kind of inside of them. And my entire journey was doing that myself. I've had coaches, I still have a coach, but like you also have to go on a journey yourself to pull those things out of you in order to make that next step in life.
I think you touched on the one thing I was going to bring up too. Was it fear that's holding most people back? And you hit and you brought it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear is the number one thing. And it's because our brains have two jobs. Like at a really base level, our brains have two jobs. One is to keep us alive. I think that's it, right? So our brain tells our body to breathe and find food and shelter and warmth and belonging and connection. Like those are all the things that it does to keep us kind of safe. And if we're trying to like go outside of that, that's where the fear comes in. And it's really rooted kind of like in our animal brain, in that if our brains are saying, well, what if I can't find that? Like, what if I don't know how to find water or shelter, or I don't know how to make fire or get food, right? And our animal brains do that kind of conversation subconsciously, which is why we don't do things. So think about it like, the first time that you went for a job interview, you don't know the person on the other side. You don't know what they're going to ask you. And that creates fear inside of you. And that's true if you're, going on a date for the first time or meeting somebody new or trying to do something outside your comfort zone, right? Your brain is like, ooh, I could die. Literally, you're not going to die, right?
Yeah.
But that's the signal your brain sends to the rest of your body is like, ooh, this could be dangerous for me. And that's why fear is such a blocker to helping to having people move forward with whatever they're trying to move forward with. It's, let's say somebody wants to lose weight and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do it 5 days a week. And then they kind of falter a little bit. And then they have a fear of failing, right? I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep up with the pace, or I don't know how to do it, or I'm not sure how to lift weights. So there's this whole, like the negatives, like I don't know, or I shouldn't, or I couldn't, or I won't, or I can't, or I don't. Like those are all things that are based out of fear.
Yeah. Like one thing I've kind of figured out too, our brain kind of runs from pain and seeks out pleasure. So anything that could be painful, who it runs away from.
You are spot on, Ryan. Spot on. It's true. Yeah, that's why sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket and binging Netflix or some other show, that's comfort. And your brain's like, ooh, this keeps me safe.
Yeah. So what is the biggest challenge your clients face?
The biggest challenge is for a lot of my clients, like the empty nest phase, the people who are struggling with it, it's their identity is wrapped up in being a parent. And so that's been their purpose for 18 or 20 or 23 years. And that's the biggest thing is like, what's my purpose now? If I'm not parenting 24/7, what's my purpose now? And it doesn't always happen with just the person who's the primary caregiver in a family. But it can happen with people who have full-time jobs and have that question. It's like, yeah, who am I now if I'm not Billy or Susie's mom or dad, right? That's where our identity gets wrapped up in us as a parent instead of us as a person. And so a lot of my work is helping people unravel their identity as a full-time parent and rediscover who they are as a person.
Interesting. You climb Kilimanjaro as an empty nester. How did that experience shape your perspective and help you apply that to your clients?
Yeah, so it was what are we, 2025? So it was 2 years ago. And, I was at a time in my life. So 55, I've been empty nesting for right at just starting to empty nest. And for me, empty nesting happened when my kids went into their first adult apartments. It didn't necessarily happen when they went off to college because the pandemic, and then they came back. So I didn't have that true empty nest experience when they left home. But I was at a point in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm 55. I'm going to say yes to opportunities, and I'm going to put myself outside my comfort zone, and I'm just going to do things. And my sister-in-law had asked me, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to climb Kilimanjaro. Do you want to go? And she said, all you have to do is pay for your plane ticket. I'll take care of everything else. And it's kind of hard not to say yes to that opportunity. And so I just said yes. I didn't necessarily know what I was getting myself into. I wasn't an avid hiker. I liked outside. I liked being outside. I liked walking and those sort of things. I had never climbed a mountain before in my entire life. Never been on a hike in my life. And so I said yes to that opportunity. And the unique thing about climbing Kilimanjaro is that it traverses 4 different climates. It hits all the climates that you have in the world. So rainforest, and then you go into kind of like moorland and an Arctic desert, and then Arctic. And so you get to experience this change in climate every couple of days, and you have to acclimate and you have to figure out how your body works with it. And if you've never hiked before, you're carrying a pack and you're carrying water and you're figuring out snacks, and you have guides, you have people who are helping you, right? You can't climb Kilimanjaro without help. And that was like, for me, it was twofold. Is like, yes, I can do hard things, right? I can get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We slept in tents and sleeping bags. And as you got higher up, it got colder. And, we had, just had, basic food that they were feeding us, nothing fancy, just enough to keep calories in us, because you burn about 6 to 8,000 calories a day climbing Kilimanjaro. And so it's like, okay, I'm out of sight of my comfort zone, but I can do this. I can do hard things. And that was kind of, for me, as I was getting inside of my business and working with clients more, was like, yeah, you know what? This is what this journey is about. Getting outside your comfort zone, being comfortable with what's uncomfortable, right? Trying new experiences. And I'm not saying, hey, you have to go climb Kilimanjaro to have like this life-changing experience. But it's a good metaphor and a reminder that if you get outside of your comfort zone, if you try new things, if you're struggling with your empty nest, you're not sure how to answer the questions, what now and what next, it's getting comfortable with uncomfortable things. And that may be, hey, I want to get my health under control. And I got to figure out how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable about going to the gym and working out in front of other people, and figuring out a routine that works and sticking to that routine and building discipline. And so that's all pieces and components of things that I learned on this journey. The other thing was like, I learned that in life, every step has purpose. And so I was so focused on every single step I took up the mountain, so I wouldn't fall, and I figured out where to place my foot. And so that was what I kind of repeated myself, is like, every step has purpose, every step is intentional, and that's how you move through life. Like, if you want to change who you are, scratch that, I'll say evolve. I'm not a big fan of saying, oh, changing is the way to go. I see people evolve and not change. So if you want to evolve yourself, it's like, yep, what's the next step? What's the next step? Tiny. That was the big takeaway. Every step has purpose, but they're tiny. They're calculated. You think about it, as opposed to saying, oh, I got to make this huge, big leap to get where I want to go. That's not how anybody gets anywhere. Right? As you move through life, it's like, what's the next tiny step? What's the next right thing to do?
Wow, I just love how there was no taking it easy. You didn't take like any baby steps. You went all in, and like no preparation first. You just threw yourself up, taking on the whole mountain.
Yeah, yes, and right. I had been doing things for my health, just like walking and doing some strength training and yoga and meditation. And the odd thing was, that's everything you need to do to prepare for Kilimanjaro anyway. It's not a technical climb, it's a hike, but it's 5 to 7 days, because you're getting acclimated to each new climate, and you're getting acclimated to the altitude that you go up in. And so I think that's the other takeaway, is like, you can get comfortable with uncomfortable things, and then you get acclimated to it. And then you do the next thing and you get acclimated to it. You do the next thing and you get acclimated to it. That's how we evolve and make change in our lives. That's the key.
Yeah. So, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give the listeners about dealing with life's transitions?
Yeah, it goes back to my life motto, is like, every step has purpose. That is the big key and takeaway for people. As like, that's what I learned in this journey so far for me. I mean, I learned it so much, I actually have it tattooed on my arm over here. Every step has purpose. It also has Kilimanjaro in the other arm. So when I put them together, it reminds me of that journey. And so that is, for me, like, the big takeaway is like, don't forget, every single step has purpose. It's how you get to your next destination, but they don't have to be big, huge leaps.
I like that mantra. Every step has purpose, because a lot of times we try to skip steps to try to get there quicker.
Yeah, yeah. Whether like people think, oh, if I go to the gym, like how long they want to know how long is it going to take for me to get stronger? How long is it going to take me to lose weight? Or how long, even when you're driving, like how long is it going to take me to get here? No, chunk it down. Make it tiny. It's just like the next right step.
Yeah, that's one thing I always say too. If you chunk everything down, it makes like those big goals seem a little bit more possible.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So you've mentioned going slow to fast was a crucial lesson from your adventures. How did this translate to navigating the empty nest transition?
Yeah, go slow to go fast. Right? That's another kind of motto. It's not my main one, but it's like a sub one. It's like you go slow to go fast. So that also came out from kind of my work in when I was in IT, and then I really kind of shone a light on it when I was climbing Kilimanjaro. Was that when I worked in schools, I was in IT, and so people wanted to move quickly. Some people wanted to move quickly with tech changes, and I was like, you got to go slow to go fast. Not everybody goes at the same pace. Right? When you make changes or make leadership changes for people, you have to go slow to go fast, because everybody will acclimate differently to that change. And that played itself out on Kilimanjaro over and over again. It's like, I got to go slow to go fast. I don't have to be first. I just have to complete the journey. And so the very first day of climbing Kilimanjaro, it was in a rainforest. And let me tell you, this body doesn't do well with heat and humidity. And so I like cold, and that works better for me in my life. And so the other group of people, they were way out in front, and I had one of the secondary leaders with me, sticking with me behind. And they said to me, right, there's a saying in Swahili, and they use it a lot when people go up Kilimanjaro, is it's called pole pole, which means slowly, slowly. It's like you don't have to go fast to get to the top. The goal is just to reach the top. And so that's the go slow to go fast. So whatever you're doing in life, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to accomplish, or however you want to go get there, just remember, you got to go slow to go fast. And the go slow to go fast is mean you just finish. You get there when you get there. And people just want to get there so quickly, they lose track of that. And that in and of itself is why people stop doing things. Because if you go too fast, then the fear kicks in too quickly. But if you go slow to go fast, you can overcome the fear.
Man, that's a great perspective on things right there. Because most people, like I said, try to speed everything up and then they'll quit because they're not prepared for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going back. It's like getting acclimated, right? So people are like, oh, I want to. Let's say you want to start running, and you want to run just a 5K, 3 miles. Are you going to go out the very first day and run 3 miles? No. I just say walk to the end of the driveway and back. Then the next day, walk to the end of the driveway and go around the block. Do that a couple of days in a row. Make sure you can do that consistently. Then maybe you ramp it up to a half a mile, and you do that for a couple of days. And then you go and do a mile for a couple of days. It seems small. People are like, oh, I should just be able to run 3 miles. Well, if you've never done it before, go slow to go fast. Get to the end of the driveway, then do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Don't go fast. Fast is a quick way to burn out and not get where you're going.
Interesting. How do you help your clients find their purpose after their children leave the house?
Yeah, the way I help clients kind of figure out what their purpose is really, I talked about it a little bit before, is like getting a handle on what's going on in your head and your heart. A lot of the empty nest transition is all about kind of having these huge emotional roller coaster ride, right? You're like, you have both pride and your heartaches at the same time. Like you're happy for your kids, but you're also sad that they're leaving. There's all these counter emotions that people have during that life transition, and also plenty of other life transitions. And so it's like, okay, what's going on in my head and my heart? Like I need to reconcile those two things. And the way our brains work is like every situation that comes up in your life, you have a thought about it and you have a feeling about it. And then you take action based upon those thoughts and feelings, or you don't take action. So everything that happens to you, and a lot of times this just happens subconsciously in the back of your head, but sometimes it happens in your front, your human brain, and you see something. Let's say somebody cuts you off in traffic, you instantly have a thought and a feeling about that person. It's probably not right? The instance could be like, hey, they're a jerk and I'm angry at them. But what if they were on their way because their wife was in labor? Or what if their house was burning down? Or, what if they were late to an interview and they hadn't had an interview in months? We don't know the circumstances, but we instantly have a thought and a feeling about it. And then we decide to take action based upon that. And so in that scenario, you might road rage a little bit, or you might, give them a finger or whatever it may be. And then you have a cycle of, okay, then your day is ruined because of what you thought and felt about that individual cutting you off in traffic. Like, you might be pissed off for the rest of the day and grumble about it. But that's true of everything that happens in our lives. So once you clean that up about your kids moving on and your purpose and what comes next in life, then you can actually figure out, who do I want to be now? What do I want to do? So there's a couple of steps there. The first one is the head and the heart. The next one is discovering who you are now that you're not parenting 24/7 anymore. And the next one is just setting goals and a timeline to them. And that's the 3 stages. That's how I help clients move through what comes next for them.
So how do you help them see that the empty nest phase is not an ending, but a beginning?
Yeah, I love that question, Ryan. Is so often people want to see ooh, okay, the kids are off at school. Now I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for them to graduate. I'm going to wait for them to get engaged. I'm going to wait for them to get married. I'm going to wait for them to have kids so I can become a grandparent. There's a lot of waiting during that time, but you're waiting for things that are totally out of your control. You can't control if your kid's going to graduate college. You can't control if they're going to get engaged or get married or have kids so you can be a grandparent. And so I encourage people to kind of really get focused on what is in your control now that the kids have left home. And so much, everything is in your control. But don't wait on other people. Focus on yourself. Shine the light in. So many parents focus on shining the light on their kids or their partner or spouse. They're always, usually the primary caregiver is always focused outward. And so now it's time to focus inward. And take a look. Do you like what you see? Do you like who you are? Is there anything you want to evolve or move forward with in your life? So it's a lot of introspection and figuring out what comes next for you. That is the biggest piece for me when I talk about that life transition. Is, again, it's answering the questions, what now and what next, but doing it in a way that allows you to move forward and not just sit there and wait.
Interesting. So how many, I can understand some, it probably works for some. It's a lot more difficult for others. How difficult of a transition is that usually?
Yeah, it's for the people who are ready to move forward but don't know how. That's when I work with people, those are the people who are the best clients, is they're ready, they just don't know how to take the steps. They don't know how to make that next step and the next step and the next step. The people who struggle with the transition, who are the ones who don't even want to address what's going on in their head and their heart. They just assume that they're stuck and this is the way life is. Okay, I was a parent. I did that for 20 some years and now the kids are off and doing their things and I don't know what to do. And that question, those words, I don't know, is such a stopper for people. And that's really just fear speaking to you. So I encourage people to say, well, what would life look like if you didn't let fear speak for you? I'll say that again in case people are, want to hear it. Is what would life look like for you if you didn't let fear speak for you? If you didn't use words like I don't know, or I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that, or I won't do that. Those are so many things that keep us stuck in exactly where we are. And I just really want to encourage people, if you're going through it, if you're on the emotional roller coaster, whether it's empty nesting or some other life transition, if you are in the fire, so to speak, and you need to get through it, is ask yourself, am I ready for that change? And what might it look like? And I encourage people to say, sometimes the only way out is through. Right? You can't, you only, if you're stuck, you have to go through it to get out to the other side. So that's why I love the title of your podcast, Through the Fire, is if you're on one side and you need to escape, sometimes the only way to do it is go through the fire.
Yeah.
Get out.
Like that's the only way. I tell everybody that's the only way to get to the other side is go through it. If not, you're going to be stuck in that same spot over and over and over again. And every time you try to step out out of your comfort zone, that same thing's going to come and stop you again until you learn your lesson and go through it.
Yeah. So spot on. So spot on, right?
How much of that is guilt?
Guilt?
How much of that is guilt by people feeling for putting themselves first?
Oh, yeah, a lot, right? If you've spent your entire life putting others first and you never learned how to put yourself first, and just for people who are listening, like, I'm not saying be selfish. That's not what I'm saying. Like, when you putting yourself first is not a selfish move. If you put yourself first at the cost of everybody else and don't care about anybody, okay, that could be troublesome. But what I'm saying is there's balance. There's balance. So putting yourself first is the only way to take care of people better, right? You got to fill your cup before you can fill other people's cups. And you've got to figure out what that looks like. So if people are listening and they're still like, they still have kids at home, is like trying to figure out who you are as a person and not just as a parent. Find time for you. And people are like, I don't know how to find time. You can always find time. Like, allow your brain to explore. Like, just do a brain dump of like, spend 5 minutes saying, what are ways that I could find time for myself? And people are like, well, I'm a single parent. I don't have any time to myself. Okay. Could you find somebody else to help? Right? Could you like just take time for yourself when the kids are sleeping? Is there another way to do it? Like, just let your brain think of all the different answers that could possibly come up for you, and not just say, I can't, or I don't know. Like, allow your brain to just go. Set a timer, 5 minutes, write down all the things that could possibly happen, and then explore those ideas. So often we want to just be stuck because stuck feels safe, right? Even feeling stuck, your brain is like, well, that feels good because I know stuck. Like, I know what comes with that feeling. And so we don't even challenge ourselves to figure out ways that we could get around it. And so that's, when you think about it, you're like, ooh, that kind of makes sense. Even crappy feeling stuck feels safe. I see your face. You're like,
yeah, I just like, but it's registering with me because I understand, because a lot of people I hear a lot of the time it's, I can't, or what do I do? I'm stuck. It's like, figure out a way. There's always time. Or the number one excuse I always hear is, I don't have time. It's like, no, it's just not that important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all have 24 hours. I know people say that all the time. Everybody has 24 hours in a day, right? But you make a choice. You choose to say you don't have time, right? But you can also choose to say, oh, I can find time, or I can carve out time, or I can take something that's less important and slide in this thing because it's more important. So if you don't have time, look at everything you do and do like a day audit, do a time audit of your day. Is there anything that you could pull out and move, or have somebody help you with? And again, I know people are probably listening like, I can't, I just can't, I can't.
It's like, yeah, go when you do that time audit, I'm sure you'll see hours on your phone that could be like knocked down to like maybe take out 30 minutes of it and you got plenty of time.
Exactly. Yeah. But your brain is like, well, but that whole thing, like the scrolling thing on social, is something that feels good, right? Is because you're looking or seeking for people who are going through the same thing that you're going through, or you want to see something that's not your life that's better. And so you're seeking for something. Well, instead of seeking for it, carve that time out and go do something that's going to help your life be better. There's always time.
Yeah.
It's a choice. Life is a choice.
Right. That's why I always say your choices are going to define where you're going to be at, so you are your choices.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
You have the podcast, This Empty Nest Life. What inspired you to start podcasting?
Yeah. So my podcast, I actually started my podcast New Year's Eve of 2020, because what else do you do during a pandemic on New Year's Eve but start a podcast? And so I started it back then. It was really just a way to bring positivity to people. And I was doing that because I needed to find positivity in the world. There was so much negativity then. And, with everybody being stuck inside and not sure and what was going on and how it was all going to resolve itself. So initially my podcast was called Positivity on Fire. And so I was looking ways to like bring positivity to the world and having conversations around like how we can move forward and things that we can find in our lives and how can we find more positivity. And then that the show evolved into becoming what I called intentionally curious, because that's where I was in my journey. So we got through the pandemic, and then I became intentionally curious about myself and my life and what I wanted to do. And then when I started coaching empty nesters, like, here's the next phase. It's this empty nest life. So if you go back to like way back to episode 1, which was, I think, December 31st of 2020, and do that first couple of, episodes through the beginning of 2021. But if you listen to my podcast from soup to nuts, it's just my journey of my life. Like my life as an empty nester, my life as a soon to be empty nester, my life of my wife getting a promotion and us moving, and me figuring out how to like leave one career and start another one and become an entrepreneur. And that it's like, isn't that what we want in life, is to hear how other people have done it and gone through it and been okay? And so when I look back on it, it's like, it's just my journey. My entire podcast is my journey. And now this emptiness life is trying to showcase like, how do we like elevate ourselves in this time in life? We're not going to live forever. And I think everybody probably in their 50s, maybe 60s, knows somebody who waited too long for something and waited to retire, and then a year later passed away because of health issues. They like waited too long. So my goal is just encouraging people to make the most of this time. You don't have to climb a mountain. You don't have to go walk the Camino, which I did this past year. You don't have to do big things. You just need to like live life, right? Find out what works for you, but don't wait. Like, don't wait. That's the biggest takeaway, is like, don't wait. Don't wait for what comes next. Don't wait on other people. Figure out how you want to live your life now, how you want to evolve as a person, and do it now.
Nice. So it's kind of your podcast, then it kind of shows your transition from one stage to another. So people get to see firsthand how you did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now in this empty nest life, I bring in guests. Just like you brought me into your show, I bring people into my show. I bring in authors and experts and empty nesters who have done different things so that people can see what's possible. Like, you can actually hear from other people on like what's possible in this empty nest life. And again, people think empty nesting is just this minor transition when the kids leave home. That's empty nesting, but it's not. It's the time frame. We said it before, the time frame between now and when you retire, or when your partner or spouse retires. That's empty nest. That's the life. It's 15 years. It could be 15 years. And so how are you gonna maximize that now? How are you gonna elevate and change and figure out what you want to do now? Your kids are off figuring it out. They're figuring out who they want to be and what life looks like for them. It's time for you to do the same thing.
Yeah, I know it's not some easy transition, because I know people that have followed their kids to college. Like, oh, they're going to college here, we're moving close, or oh, they got a job, oh, we got to move with them. So
Absolutely.
I understand that transition's not very easy.
Absolutely.
What's the most rewarding part about podcasting for you?
I love just kind of being helpful to other people. I think that's kind of how I live my entire life, is being helpful to other people. What I love most about podcasting, which I assume is probably the same for you, is just interviewing other people and listening to their stories, because I always learn something new. I learn something about how I can apply what they do to my life, or I can apply to how I help my clients. But just hearing people's stories and being connected to other people in that way is such a powerful thing for me. And I assume it's the same for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's my favorite part, is like listen to people's stories, because somebody once asked me, like, why are you doing this? I'm like, I just want to show people that everybody goes through adversity, that everybody faces something. It's nobody's life's perfect. I mean, it's just what you do when that adversity comes, that's going to show like what direction you go and how you like perceive it all, and like what's possible.
Absolutely. If you think about it, Ryan, right? most books and most movies follow that same script.
Yeah.
Right? There's somebody who faced adversity, they overcame it, they had somebody who guided them through it, and then they became the hero of their story. That's the human experience for a lot of people. And you and I and other people who do this kind of work, we're just regular people, right? We've just learned how to articulate what our journey is. We're not special. We just know that telling our story can help other people who feel stuck, can shine a light on how other people might be able to move forward. And I think that's the best part about podcasting, the best part about doing the work that I do, and the blogs that I write and the videos I do on TikTok and Instagram is like, if it helps one person, I'm a big believer, like if you can impact one or you can impact 1 million, there's really no difference. Impact is impact.
Yeah. So I said, it's usually just helping one person. If you can just help one person and save that one person, you've done your job.
Absolutely. And oftentimes you don't even know.
Yeah.
Right? Probably somebody listens to your show and they listen to all your guests and they're like, ooh, this clicked for me. And that's all they needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you may never know that. You may never meet them, but trust me, I know it happens.
Yeah. So you're writing a book right now called The Empty Nest Life, Navigating the Challenge of Change. What's the most surprising insight about change you've uncovered in your research and coaching experience?
Yeah. So the one thing that I've uncovered is kind of like an aha moment is the challenge of change, which again, empty nesting is a transition. Every transition in life we have is a change that also has challenges with it. And so the one thing that I've learned that my brain showed me was that if you look at the word challenge, right? Can you see that word in your challenge, 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 right? If you look in the front, CHA, and at the end, NGE, right? That's change. The word change. So the word change is actually in the word challenge. So challenge and change go hand in hand. And what I've realized is so many times when we face challenges and we have change in our lives, we want to force the issue, right? We want to try and take control because that's what our brains want to do. We want to take control of the situation. And sometimes, right, you have to do what's in the middle of that word, which is LLE, which is let life evolve. Sometimes you can't force the issue. You have to just let life evolve and take things as they come. And so for me, that's the biggest thing that I've learned is every change in life has its challenges, and every challenge we face brings some change to our life, but you have to let life evolve. And when you hold on so tightly that you want that control, it's hard for life to evolve, or you can't see that life will evolve. And that's the biggest piece for me. Again, wow. I see your face.
That's some great insight right there. I've never thought about it that way, that in the middle of the challenge, change is in there.
It's at the front. It changes at the front of every challenge, and it's at the end of every challenge.
Huh. Yeah. I've never noticed that before. That's some great insight.
Now you won't be able to unsee it.
Yeah.
You see the word challenge. You're
and I like that. Let life evolve.
Let life evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems we all have is we want to control the outcomes. And it's we're not in control. Sometimes you just have to say, "Hey, I'm not in control. What happens, happens."
Yeah, and the only thing that you are in control of is how you think and feel about what's happening.
Yep,
that's it.
Yep, your attitude and effort is what I always say. Control the controllables.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so good.
What's the biggest challenge you're facing as you're writing your book?
Getting it done. Finding the time. It's about 80 to 90% there. It's just a matter of tweaking and putting it all together. My hope is, and hope is not a great strategy, so I gotta get that out of my mindset. But my hope is to have it ready for the fall when people are getting ready to send their kids off to college. So that it becomes something that's available to them. Is This Empty Nest Life, Navigating the Challenge of Change. That's the working title. I don't know if that'll end up being the title of the book. That's kind of where my brain is, everything with This Empty Nest Life. But I feel like it's important to know, for people to know they're not alone, because oftentimes people don't talk about empty nesting in the transition. Everybody just assumes it's this glamorous thing and you should be off jet setting, celebrating and popping champagne. That's what people think of. So when they do struggle with it, there's some shame and guilt because they don't see people talking about that. It can be hard transition for people. And trust me, I have like 60 some thousand followers on TikTok, and lots of them say in my comments that it is struggling. They do struggle with that transition. They don't know how to answer the question, what now and what next? So just know that you're not alone if you're struggling with that transition. And that the book is, hopefully something that when parents, have like graduation parties or their kids graduating and somebody brings a graduation present to the kids, that they'll also bring this book to the parents. That's the goal.
Man, that's a great goal to have there. Right here. Here's money for you, and here's a book for
Here's a book for mom and dad.
right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Here's a book for mom and dad. Here's what you can experience. And it's a book that you kind of jump in and out of, right? You can pick it up and go to a section. Like if you're struggling with the grief, you can go to the section on grief. If you're struggling with like overcoming the silence, you can go to the section on overcoming silence. If you're struggling with what comes next, you can go to like how to answer those questions. So there's stories and there's quotes and there's places that you can journal. It's kind of like this all-in-one book that I wish I would have had when my kids launched to just kind of process things.
Yeah. Well, now you get to give back from the knowledge you learned, though. So
Exactly.
how important has personal development and upgrading your mindset been for you on this journey?
Absolutely none. No, I'm kidding. It's huge. It's huge, right? I really believe in personal development. It all comes from when I was working in education, and professional development is a big piece of that for educators. And so I learned early in my career, like developing yourself professionally is important, but doing that means you also have to develop yourself personally. And so taking time to do that, and lots of people will be like, "Oh, I don't have time." Again, we talked about that before. I don't have time, but you do. Like if you really want to evolve as a human, personal development is the way to go. And focusing on mindset, right? And I'm sure you've had guests talk about like a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. The work of Carol Dweck, right? It's like you can have a fixed mindset and use all the negatives that we talked about. I don't know, or I shouldn't, or I couldn't, or I won't, or I can't. Or you can have a growth mindset and say, okay, what's possible for me? What does that look like? And if you ask yourself that every single day, you don't have it's like people think personal development has to be like this big, arduous task. It can be just as simple as asking yourself, like, what's possible for me today? And seeing where your brain takes you.
Yeah.
Don't make it hard. Make it simple.
Yeah. I think that's what us as humans kind of overcomplicate things at times when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
What is one book you'd recommend on personal development or mindset?
So one of the ones I really love is Self-Coaching 101 by Brooke Castillo. It really goes into the whole your thoughts and your feelings drive your actions and your results. And it kind of teaches you concepts in there on how, like, if you have negative thoughts and negative emotions, you'll probably have a negative outcome. And if you can simply make some simple tweaks to have positive thoughts and positive emotions, then you can have more positive actions in your life and outcomes in your life. And again, I know people listening will be like, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. But if you read the book, it really outlines it. Like an example they give in the book is, let's say it's your birthday and your partner, your spouse forgets to get you a gift, right? You can immediately have a ton of negative thoughts and feelings about that. Like they're a jerk, they forgot, they don't love me, right? Those could be thoughts around that circumstance. You can have feelings around that, like being sad or angry or mad. That could play out in you like getting angry at them, being pissed at them, being passive aggressive and being quiet. Or you can just have a different thought and be like, maybe, just maybe, they have shit going on at work and it just slipped their mind. And does that change for you? Does that change your feelings about it? Do you have empathy then? Right? And if you have empathy, then what does that look like? Or if somebody's late to meet you for a meal, right? You could have thoughts and feelings like they don't respect my time, they don't care for me, how inconsiderate. And then you can be standoffish when they get there. Or you could be like, holy crap, what if they're late? because they're stuck in traffic, or they got in an accident, or the babysitter, was late to come. Like all of those things, you can then have a different thought and feeling about the experience. And that's what the book teaches you.
Yeah, that is some great advice right there. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, short-term goals. I gotta get the book. That's a short-term goal for sure, is the book. And long-term goals, I think it's still just long-term goals are still just living life, saying yes to opportunities. Something that I learned recently is I saw somebody post about it, and I've come to kind of like learn more about it. Is like move your horizon closer. I'll say that again, move your horizon closer. So with long-term goals, we're thinking, oh, what do you want to do in 3 or 5 years? And that, if you think about it, you're like, let's say you're, standing on the beach or whatever, and you're looking all the way out, far, 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 and there's a ship way out there, and that's the horizon. I'm like, no, pull the horizon closer. Make the horizon the shoreline, like where the water is lapping at the beach. Shorten your distance, shorten your goals. That's, I think the next thing is like, let's focus on what comes next in the short term, because all your short-term things will actually add up to a long-term goal, right? It's okay to have a long-term goal, but if you constantly think about the long-term goal, you'll never figure out the short steps in between. It goes back to what we're talking about before. So shorten your horizon. That's, for me, is like, I just want to keep saying yes to opportunities. Yes, that come up. I want to have an open mindset around how I can live my life to the fullest as long as I can, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed that we're going to be healthy all of the time. So what can I do today to maximize my life? What can I do today to enjoy my life? What's one thing I can take away from today that I saw is joyful? Even in the crappiest and shittiest of days, you can find one thing that was good. I guarantee it. You can find one thing, even on the crappiest of days. And so that's how I kind of live life, is like, move the horizon closer. What's the next day? What's the next step? Again, every step has purpose. How can I make that next right step?
I love that. Say yes to all of the opportunities that come to you.
Say yes. Yeah. And when you say yes to opportunities, Ryan, like I said yes to coming on your show, right? Most likely, if I say yes to you, I'm going to be more open to saying yes to other people. So the more you say yes, the more opportunities present themselves to you. The more your brain looks for opportunities when you say yes. When you say no, guess what happens? The less opportunities come to you.
Yeah,
The less life will show you those opportunities, because you're saying no.
that's so true. How can people get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is just, you can come to my website, thisemptinesslife.com. If you Google Jay Ramsden, the Emptiness Coach, and I'll fill up the entire first page of Google. It'll put you to my website. It'll find TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all the places I am. But thisemptinesslife.com is the quickest way to find me and get in touch with me.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
We've covered a lot today. I appreciate being on the show. There's nothing I can think of other than just a reminder, like, every step has purpose in your life. Just remember that. Take the next right step for you.
Great advice. What is one piece of final question? What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I think the one thing is just being open to opportunities, and moving away from the I can't and I shouldn't and I won't and I couldn't and I don't. Move away from those, the contractions of life, and let that expand into, like, what are the possibilities? Just ask yourself that today. What are the possibilities for me?
I love it. Like, thinking outside the box, like, what is possible?
What is possible? Yeah. And don't limit yourself by money or time or energy or anything else. Just let your brain run wild with, what are the possibilities for me?
Great. Well, Jay, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today. It was like a great conversation. I loved every second of it. Like, you taught me a lot.
Well, I appreciate you so much for reaching out and having me on the show, Ryan. I love the title, Through the Fire. And sometimes that's the only way through.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, that's all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.